I've been using amp modelers now for, I don't know, 9 or 10 years, and I love them. They've been life-changing for me, but where you put them in the effects chain makes a big difference. I'd like to look at 2 different options with you today. So let's look at Amp Modeler effects chain ordering option number 1. And this mimics or simulates a more traditional effects chain where you've got a bunch of pedals that go into a guitar amplifier. So if you look on the floor here, I'm going from my guitar into a compressor, that's the red Strymon Compadre, into the yellow box, which is a distortion, it's the Strymon Iridium, into a volume pedal, and then into a delay pedal, that's the Strymon Dig. The Strymon Dig has stereo outputs, and many guitar amp modelers today can accept a stereo input. And I'm using the Strymon Iridium setup for a stereo input. So again, this is kind of like a traditional pedals into the front end of a guitar amplifier. I've got a clean tone set up, and here's what it sounds like. And in case you're interested, it's a Fender amp model going into actually a Marshall speaker cabinet simulation. So kind of cool. Okay, so what happens when I turn on the delay that is in front of the amp model? So again, think about your traditional pedals in front of a guitar amplifier. You're going to have your delay pedal going into the input of the guitar amp. Here's what that sounds like. Yeah, it sounds really good. But one thing I should mention is because you've got the amp modeler at the end of the chain, everything in front of it is going to be frequency constrained. In other words, it's going to be constrained by the frequency response of the guitar cabinet simulation and also the frequency response of the amplifier, which is typically, designed for guitars. So you may get a softer toned delay than if you use a different effects chain order, which we'll look at in a few minutes. All right, next up, we've got a distortion pedal in front of the clean amp model. Here's what that sounds like. And it's kind of a typical distortion in front of a clean amp sound. Now, let me go ahead and turn that delay back on and listen to the repeats carefully. Okay, so listen to the level of the repeats and the tonality of the repeats. Yeah, if you can hear it, if you've got headphones on or good speakers, you can probably hear that the tonality of the repeats is consistent and the level of the repeats is consistent whether I have the distortion pedal on or off. So that is great. Also, let's check out volume swells, which ambient guitar, right? So here we go. And with distortion. So what we have right now, even with the amp model at the end of the effects chain, we've got a really stable sound, whether we have distortion or not. Let's go ahead and crank the gain on the amp model itself. All right, I've adjusted the gain from about 40% to about 60%, and here is the no longer clean tone. Yeah. But let's try the delay pedal with this amp modeler setting. Now, did you listen carefully? Listen to the repeats of the delay. With a little bit of gain on the amp model itself, because of the compression of the signal, the delay repeats actually just raised in relationship to the dry tone. So now they're a little bit louder. Yeah. So, and then if I add more distortion onto it, the other thing you can hear about the delay repeats now is that they have changed in tonality. They're very compressed sounding. And they're more distorted, which you would expect, right? All right, so let's go ahead and raise the amp model gain some more, up to 80%. All right, here's what the gain sounds like at 80%. Now, let me go ahead and turn that delay on. Whoa! Did you hear how loud those repeats are? And everything sounds very kind of mushy, right? Now, one other thing we need to try with this setup is the volume pedal. So let me go ahead and do that. Let's hear what's going on here. Now that's pretty clean, isn't it? But I'm only raising the volume a little bit. Let's hear what happens if I raise the volume a lot. I'm actually changing the gain structure going into the amp model. So if I just raise that volume pedal just a little bit, yeah, it's not very distorted, but if I raise it all the way up, so everything in front of the amp model is dynamically affected by the amount of gain set up in the amp model. It's very, very much like a real amplifier. All right, let's check out effects chain option number 2. I like to call this the studio option. Imagine if you were going to go record in a recording studio. You bring your guitar and your guitar amplifier, you set up, the recording engineer sets up a microphone, you go ahead and play your track, and then later on, the recording engineer adds effects during the mixdown, whether it's delay, reverbs, choruses, whatever it might be. It's all after the fact in the recording studio. And so this effects chain kind of mimics that idea. So look what I got going on. First up again is the compressor, the compadre, into the distortion, the Riverside, but now I'm going directly into the Strymon Iridium. So all of the dynamics and gain related pedals are at the front end of the effects chain. From the iridium, now I go into the volume pedal, and then lastly, I go into the delay, the Strymon dig. So let's check this out and hear what we got going on. Here's my clean, pretty clean tone going on. It's the same Fender amp model. And let's go ahead and check out the distortion. Now, one of the things I should note is with the volume pedal, now I'm not changing the gain structure of the amplifier or the amp modeler or the distortion pedal. So check this out. So the volume pedal only raises the volume. It does not change the amount of gain. Now, if I want to do that, I can use the volume control on the guitar. I'm going to use my pinky finger here. Okay, so the gain structure is all in the front end. And let's go ahead and listen to some delay on this tone. Now, if you were to scroll the video back and compare this delay to the original delay with the amp modeler at the end of the chain, yeah, there's a lot more high end now that you can hear in the delay. Let's try that with the distortion. Yeah, it's a much cleaner delay sound. Even, I say cleaner, with the distortion itself, you can tell that the delay repeats themselves are not being distorted. It's just what is coming into the delay itself. Let's go ahead and raise the gain on the amp modeler itself. All right, just like last time, I've raised the gain to about 60%. Here's what we get. Yeah, pretty close to the way it sounded, right? With the amp modeler at the end of the chain and no other effects. But let's go ahead and add in the delay. Can you hear that? I've not changed the dynamics of the delay repeats themselves. Again, if you scroll back and listen, you can really hear with a higher gain level on the amp modeler that the delay dynamics are getting squished and they're raising in volume compared to my dry tone. But that's not happening now. Let's go ahead and raise the gain up to 80–85%. All right, here's what that sounds like dry. Yeah, it's got a fair amount of gain, doesn't it? Now let's go ahead and add that delay in and hear what we get. Now let's make it super high gain with the distortion pedal itself added into the amp modeler. Yeah, so the delay repeats remain clean and they remain at a consistent level. A lot different in terms of how the whole effects chain reacts when the amp modeler is at the end of the chain. Drop a comment, let me know your thoughts. Also, I've got some other videos here dealing with effects chain ordering. I hope you'll check them out, and I'll see all of you on the next video.